Welcome back to On Texas Football's Tuesday Night Longhorn Livestream presented by Andy Ludicky. I'm your host, Amanda Atwell, joined by CJ Vogel and Jeff Howell. Y'all make sure to get any questions you have in, super chats. We'll jump to the top of our list and we'll get right into it today. We have the college football playoff rankings dropping here shortly. They're not out yet, but I'm pretty sure y'all have a couple of predictions of where you think Texas will likely land this week. Obviously, most likely not in that top 10 category where they would be in the playoff at this point. So if y'all have any, what are y'all thinking that we're going to see today?
I don't know. Y'all probably won't like the answer, right? But the AP poll had it Texas at what, 17?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's probably going to be in that same vicinity, right? I think maybe 16 is your best option. 16 is probably the only path that you have to a college football playoff hopes. Anything after that, I think it gets really dicey in terms of where the committee sees everybody at the moment. But 17 is probably likely, again, kind of building off of that of the AP poll. It makes sense to be in that area. You're just going to need a lot of help. But 16 would be a big start to getting closer to where you need to be.
I wouldn't be shocked if Texas is 15th or maybe even higher.
Oh,
and the only reason why I say that is because my interpretation of the first couple sets of rankings were the committee really wasn't considering that Ohio State loss. It's almost like Texas got a mulligan for that. So at this point, to me, in the eyes of the committee, you've got two SEC losses on the road against Georgia, on the road against Florida. I know Florida's not a very good team. But I wouldn't be shocked if Texas is in the top 15. I wouldn't.
Do you think that the way in which Texas kind of fell in that fourth quarter, do you think that might deter the committee from a top 15 spot for Texas, Jeff?
Well, the committee,
or they look at the first three quarters and say, hey, just like what Sark said, it was a tight contested game, right?
I guess it depends, CJ, how much does the committee look at game control?
Yeah.
Because game control can work different ways for Texas. You can look at game control as a positive for the Vanderbilt game. You could also look at game control as a positive for the Georgia game because it was 14-10 at one point late third quarter and you're about to get the ball back and then Georgia goes on the run. So I guess that would be my thing. How much does the committee value game control? And I don't know. None of us knows the answer to that.
Yeah, I think my only thing would be is just in that the game was, I was just thinking I wasn't miserable watching that entire game. It just got to the point in the fourth quarter where it was like, I'm not having fun anymore watching this. It just, I mean, after that onside kick, I don't know what y'all's reaction was, but I was just like, well, hats off Kirby. That was quite the call there. You can't even really say anything at that point. But I mean, Texas was competitive in that game, and I think there were a lot of missed opportunities there where the game completely differently. There were missed calls, but I mean, I don't want to linger on every single missed holding call because those are obviously just going to happen in the SEC at this point. And I think at the same time, Texas just had to play more disciplined. And it might be a different scenario. But, I mean, we also haven't seen where Texas can play more disciplined because, I mean, they're, second to last in how many penalties they've had this season, which is pretty – I mean, I will say Texas A&M is 125 on that list as well. So it's not like they've been playing super disciplined football either, but they've also been winning. So
no, and they're not a disciplined football team. Look, I'll continue to say it. In terms of penalties per game, you're dead last in the Power Four and you're next to last in the FBS. There is zero excuse for you to be that undisciplined as a football team. I don't care if they're pre-snap penalties, post-snap penalties, live ball penalties, however you want to describe the penalties. 8.2 per game is ridiculous, and that's got to get rectified. To your point, Amanda, I think the Georgia loss is the further removed we get from it. I've kind of got two different ways to think about it. One, and when you get your brains beat in, it's almost just it's easier to come up with answers, right? Like, like, look, Kirby Smart just simply that Georgia staff outmaneuvered the Texas staff. Georgia was a disciplined football team. Texas took the ball, abandoned the run. Like, there are rational explanations as to why you lost that game, but at the same time, that doesn't make it hurt any less. Like, it still sucks. It's not fun to watch that kind of implosion in the football.
Yeah, I completely agree. Have y'all ever been skiing?
No.
Yes,
No?
unfortunately.
Yes. That's crazy considering your knees, Amanda. But
I went last year and I got crashed into by a snowboarder, so that was my last time, and I re-cracked a rib, so that was the last time.
There it is. There it is. I knew an injury was coming there, but for folks that have gone skiing at home, right? You know, you go down like maybe a slope that's a little too steep for your skill set, and you know, you try to make it all the way down, and you fall, you tumble, you try to save yourself. You know, maybe if you're skiing, you try to stick a pole in the ground as you're sliding down the hill. You don't, right? And you miss the opportunity to stop yourself. And so eventually halfway down the mountain, you're just, screw it. This thing has to even out at some point, right? So you just let yourself fall all the way down. That's kind of what the fourth quarter against Georgia felt like.
Yeah.
You know, you felt it falling, you know, you felt your chances kind of slipping away, but you couldn't stop it. And if you did, well, you missed the opportunity with the onside kick to do exactly that. And as a result, you just had to wait until it evened all the way out. And unfortunately for Texas, that was when clocks hit 0. But yeah, Hookham said, and then you hit a big rock. Amanda, I'm surprised you didn't hit a tree or something.
Yeah, well, you actually very much reminded me. I took a ski lesson that day, and I did great on the greens. They were like, you look like you've skied before. Great. So my lovely boyfriend and his cousin brought me to the hardest blue on the mountain directly after my ski lesson. And I proceeded to tumble down the entire mountain. Instead of going off the cliff, I crashed into piles of snow. Yeah. It was not fun, but it was very reminiscent of that fourth quarter of the game we watched. It eventually evened out, but there was no pride left at the end of that run on that mountain.
And that's probably how Texas felt walking off the field. But yeah, Cisco skiing down in the Texas Hill Country. I'm not sure how powdery that gets down there, but no, that's kind of how I was feeling watching that game in person. It was just, it didn't matter what Texas tried to grab onto to stop the fall. You know, Georgia, Kirby Smart, they just had another answer. And, you know, that's unfortunate because this is a talented Texas team. And Jeff, you mentioned the penalties, right? Drops have kind of been an issue, of course, you know, self-inflicted, the coverages in the back end. For whatever reason, there's just yet to be a cohesive gel with this team. Excuse me. And as a result, whenever you get fallen, especially against a good team, that's all you got. You know.
You okay over there? You need some water?
I'm dying, Matthew.
What I was going to say was with the penalties, what really confused me about the penalties is, yes, this is a young Texas team, but there are younger teams in the SEC. There are younger teams in college football. There's no excuse for a team like this to be this undisciplined or whatever the term is there. So I think that's most confusing and concerning. I mean, you can also say that SEC refs have been missing a lot of calls because there were a lot of missed calls. I don't think Arch has an interception if there's a holding call called on that play. But yeah, so I think that's my biggest concern at this point is just the lack of discipline on this team that we've seen so far.
And it was, I'm trying to remember what game it would have been. It probably would have been the Florida game when we just kept seeing this. And it's like, okay, clearly it's like, it's not going to get any better. They're just going to be undisciplined and sloppy. And a team that, I know I've said some form of this. So I apologize if it sounds like I'm just kind of piling on at this point. I'm really just disappointed, knowing Sark talks about how much he took from Nick Saban. The hallmark of a Nick Saban coach team is they are extremely disciplined. They are buttoned up. They pay attention to detail. And this team does not do that, like, at all. And it's not like this is just a 1-year issue. Like, under Sark, penalties per game have been getting progressively worse every year he's been here. So that tells me, and it's not that you've had bad players. It's not that you've had bad leadership or anything like that. That's why I think it's a fixable issue The issue has got to be addressed, though. It's not going to get fixed until the offseason, though, because I don't know if it's how you enforce it in practice, how you emphasize it in meetings, whatever the case is. You just have to take a different approach to penalties to curb them a little bit. You can't control what the officials call or don't call against the opponent. You can control your ability to not jump off sides. You can control your ability to know the snap count. You can control your ability to know where you are in relation to the line of scrimmage, or where you are in relation to where you line up within the formation for a pre-snap penalty. So they are not controlling the controllables in terms of how they're handling their penalties right now.
Yep, definitely.
I'm sorry I choked out right there. Peanut M&M, I mean, 1-0 against me over the last 30 seconds. So sorry, guys.
All right. Well, we'll get to a little bit more of your comments, some of these comments about Sark's press conference that has been making the rounds right after we hear from our friends over at My Perfect Franchise. Are you looking to diversify or new ways to make money? Andy Ludicky at myperfectfranchise.net can help you do just that by finding you businesses that will fit your time allotment and financial goals. Call him or email him to learn more. He's got a really cool process that identifies a perfect fit for you. Email him now at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. Oh, where are you at, Matthew? All right. He's returned. All right. So we got a comment. I believe Chris made this comment about a particular comment that Sark made in the press conference that has not gotten a great response from a lot of fans. And it is a response to, what was the question that was asked? The expectation. What do you say about the expectation to the season or having not lived up to it?
It was underachieved.
Underachieved. Yes, that was what it was.
That's into who voted us number one. Okay. What I think is that this team has competed their tail off. They've been faced with a lot of different adversity and injuries, and a lot of stuff has come across this team's plate. And I'm very, very proud of them with their resiliency. At the end of the day, at the University of Texas, we're held to a very high standard. And the standard is to compete for championships year in and year out. And we're going to play the best teams in the country. We're going to schedule the best teams in the country. But by the end of the season, we'll play, of our 12 regular season opponents, 5 of those teams will be top 10 teams when we played them. So nearly half our schedule. And we have an opportunity at the end of the regular season to do something that nobody's done since 2019, and that's beat 3 top 10 ranked teams in the regular season. The last team to do that was LSU with Joe Burrow. So have we been faced with a pretty difficult schedule? Have we been faced with high expectations? Sure, but that's why we came here. So we'll be okay.
So getting a lot of pushback on that, I think particularly what was off-putting to a lot of fans was the first response of just kind of spinning it back on the media. The media is who ranked us preseason number 1. And I think if he had entered this response differently and then just continued on with what he had said, the response would be, this wouldn't be circulating Twitter with a bunch of angry fans saying he's checked out right now. If he had just said, yeah, we have the expectation to be a college football playoff team, and we expect to win, and it's disappointing for us that we have not won. Just own up to the fact that the result, a loss is disappointing. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say a loss is frustrating. You say it right after the game happens. So I just don't think spinning it back on the media, pre-ranking them number 1, is going to pull you any favor from your fan base.
Well,
no, I'm with you. I'll be quick, Jeff. I'm sorry, but
no, you're good.
I'm posted a couple thoughts on this very topic earlier today on Twitter, and we talked about it on the Winning Drive last night. But Amanda, I thought you had a great response to this on Twitter yesterday, and it was very much what you were just saying. Is, hey, it's okay to acknowledge that yes, it's not gone according to plan. It's kind of fallen short of your preseason goals, while also looking forward to, hey, it's not over yet, or hey, we still can improve and get better before the season's end, and try to remedy or find some sort of happy medium for the conclusion of the season. And so I'm with you. I didn't love the answer, and I won't go on a long rant again today, but there's room for, the self-acknowledgement of, hey, yeah, it's been a bit of a rocky road, but it's not over, right? We're still fighting hard. We're still a young team. They've grown each and every week, and that's something to be proud of, while also acknowledging the fact that, hey, the standard is what you've set over the last few years. And that standard is making the college football playoff, competing for an SEC championship, and being in a position to make a run for the national championship. That's what we've known this program to be since you've arrived. Now, with this setback, right, I'm not saying it's off the cliff or anything, but with this setback, it's all about how do you respond and move forward. And that what right there was an answer, is like, hey, it's not gone according to plan, but we could still get there, right? So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. When you according to who, I would say it says Sark, according to you and your players, because we can talk about preseason rankings and everything else. When you spend all off season, spring ball through the summer, you go through SEC media days, you go through camp, and you're openly talking about competing for a national championship, winning championships, competing for an SEC championship. When you get to a point in the season when you're in November and you've got 2 games left and you no longer control your own destiny, and you're probably eliminated from going to the SEC championship game, that's underachieving. And it's okay. To your point a minute, like you said it perfectly, like you can acknowledge, like, yeah, the fact that we no longer control our own destiny, we're as disappointed in that as anybody. But we've got 2 games, a team that would love to beat us in Arkansas, and then a rivalry against A&M. So we'll see how we finish. We'll assess it at that point. But yeah, just if Sark had just given the back end of that response that we heard and not gone back and forth with Kirk, oh, well, according to who? Well, that's people. If he just left that out, this would just be an innocuous press conference speak. Yep. But because he did that, everybody that wants to say Sark's not accountable, Sark doesn't take accountability, everybody that wants to point that finger at Sark, they've got all the ammunition they need when he says something like that.
Yeah, and they have even more ammunition when they pull up an old video from the very disappointing, the very underachieving 2021 season, where Sark made a comment. And I feel like this was taken a little bit out of context, so we'll get into that in just a second. But a comment from his 2021 season about 3 and 4 win seasons being disappointing.
Right? If I was in year 4 of our program and I had 3 or 4 losses already right now, and I've been banging this drum of where we're going to be 4 years from now, and we still aren't there, then I would be concerned. But we're in year 1. We're in the building phase of where we're headed as a program. In year 4, if I'm sitting here with 3 or 4 losses, then I would probably be more concerned. Right? If I was in year.
Yeah. So Jeff, you said there's a little more context to this. I think it was in response to the 3 or 4 losses straight. Is that what?
Yeah.
This after?
So that was said. That was said after Texas had lost to West Virginia, and I think the losing streak at that point was at 5. So that's part of it. So I don't know if he was. I can't remember. I've slept since then, so I can't remember if he was talking about consecutive losses or something like that. The other part to that was, and I want to say it was Eric Henry from 24/7 Sports who pointed out that was Sark. And I didn't go back and watch the whole press conference video because I'm at the point I'm not going to get in Twitter spouts at this point. Like I've better things.
Come
on. Missing out on all the fun.
Been there, done that, have the t-shirt buried in a cedar chest somewhere. But I think Eric pointed out the question was recruiting related.
This was also 6 straight losses.
It was 6 straight. Gosh, thanks, Amanda.
And then the following week, they won the following week against Kansas State.
So yeah, they did beat K-State in the regular season, and that was actually one of the better coaching jobs Sark has done based on the quarterback situation. But yeah, so I don't know, like you can pull up old stuff like that, and there's other stuff where you can legitimately like point to that they haven't met the standard that they themselves set and that they themselves talked about without pulling up quotes and not giving proper context. Like there's plenty of low-hanging fruit here if you just look for it.
Yeah. And I think just more context with this is that he says, 3-4 losses, but at the same time, it's 3 or 4 losses over the course of an entire season, and you're coming off of 2 seasons straight of making the college football playoff. He's obviously built something. There's something here that was not there in 2021. Is this more of a transition year at this point? Sure. Could this be a blip on the radar next season? Sure. Could Texas win out and make fans pretty happy with beating an undefeated A&M at the end of the season? That's still on the table, but I do think this post was taken very out of context. I don't know what you think, CJ.
Yeah, no, I kind of wanted to come to the defense of what we do here, and I've seen a lot of comments saying,
I was gonna say, you know what? No, CJ, go, because I'm gonna say something that I probably shouldn't. So you go ahead.
Here's where I'm at, and I'm seeing a lot of comments saying, "Hey, OTF, this is on y'all. Y'all helped publicize and promote and build Texas up." And all I can say to that is, well, looking at it objectively, this is where things stood coming into the season. Texas had 4 consecutive top 5 recruiting classes. They had an offensive line with projected 3 seniors on the interior, a guy that stepped in and played fantastic against really elite competition at left tackle and a 5-star right tackle. You felt like you had some returning guys that had continuity with Arch Manning. Oh, by the way, who was a number 1 overall quarterback in the entire country with a defense, mind you, who had 4 All-Americans, 3 of which returning, 1 at each level of the on the field. The only team in the country to be able to boast that. So yeah, if I'm at fault for thinking this Texas team was something that could achieve the college football playoff, hand up, that's on me, because the talent's there. And I think we all see that on Sundays, but what's not is the consistency, the simple execution of an inside zone or running game and short distances. Now it's communication, right? The talent absolutely is there. It's on me for recognizing that and calling it out as it is, but hey, I do think this is a very talented and at times very good football team. For whatever reason, it's fallen short, but I don't think it's because of sunshine pumping or because I had burnt orange glasses on at the beginning of the year. No, this was basically the consensus that Texas coming into the season was a top 5 team in the country. This was not something that was orchestrated by us here at OTF. This was a nationwide belief.
Yeah, and take a long look at Penn State and Clemson at the same time while you do that.
By the way, Texas is 17 in the CFP rankings, if anybody cares. But I'll say this too: whenever we're giving you sourced information, where do you think we're getting our information from? Who do you think is telling us how good things are internally? We don't just make it up. I don't just pull it out of my backside. None of us do. So if I'm guilty of it, yeah, I was dead wrong about the offensive line. I've said that the last couple of weeks. I was dead wrong, and I was ignorant thinking that losing 4 guys to the NFL, 3 of them draft picks, that it wouldn't impact the offensive line. And I was expecting Neto and Moselo to step up and fill in at left guard and moving Cole Hudson to center. I thought it would help Texas anchor better in the power run game and they'd be able to run the football a little more consistently. That has not happened. I thought Arch would be a little further ahead than he is. But at the same time, the Arch Manning I'm seeing now, I got no problem with it. Arch is getting better. Arch is developing. Arch is evolving. And if you can't see that, then I don't know what to tell you. I expected the secondary to step back a little bit. I didn't expect them to still be giving up chunk yardage plays at this point. So I'm more than willing to step up and admit when I'm wrong. That's not a problem. But it's not on us when the head coach and the players all stand up and talk about competing for a national championship, winning a national championship, saying the standard is the standard and the standard is a national championship, and that's where it is in Texas. And you're sitting here in November with 2 games left to play in the regular season and you do not control your own destiny. It's okay if you just accept that a little bit and you're accountable for it. That's not on, I don't know how the hell that's on the OTF staff, but go on if you want to go on, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to pin that on one media site, then pin it on all of them. Because acting like one or the other was saying anything different. Heck, Billy over at Texags was saying the same thing coming into the season. He thought Texas should be a top 5 program coming into the season and be a lock for the college football playoff. So if you're going to sit here and try to say it's people looking through orange-colored glasses, that's just simply not the case. I mean, and if you looked at the information you were given at the time coming into this football season, what else are you going to say? There were so many unknowns coming into this football season as well, with the new quarterbacks at the top programs. You have Gunnar Stockton, you have Nussmeier, you have all of these different quarterbacks that were not starters last year coming in to be starters. There were so many unknowns coming into this season. Obviously, there's going to be a couple misses. Now, just be happy, sit here and maybe be happy that the miss wasn't as drastic as a Penn State or as a Clemson or somebody who now no longer had one of these other, 6 teams that no longer has a head coach on staff. So rebuilding years are just I don't know if you want to call it a rebuilding year at this point, but to act like just the entire world is blowing up because you have 3 losses that you didn't expect to have at this point and don't control your own destiny is dramatic. It's a little bit dramatic. I don't know.
I may come off as thin-skinned. I don't really care. You say what you want. If you want to come on a show that I'm co-hosting and you want to call me out in the chat by name and expect me not to respond, think again. Let's freaking do it. I'm not just going to sit here and take it.
I completely agree.
Sorry. Try to calm down, but
Do you want to tell us?
You want to challenge me, expect me not to clap back, then think again.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Real quick, because I completely agree as well. We're in the top 10 of the college football playoff right now. Alabama at 10, Notre Dame 9, Oklahoma's up 3 spots over after the win over Alabama. They're at 8, Oregon at 7 as well. So we'll get you updated with the top 5 here in a minute. And for those that missed it, Texas right now sitting at 17, which we'll talk about here in a minute.
All right, Jeff, do you want to tell us about Duck Camp real quick?
Sure. I have no problem talking about Duck Camp. I love Duck Camp because Duck Camp is for folks who live for being out there, whether that's in the duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for a Saturday kickoff. Born in Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a full day in the field as it does for a long day of tailgating. From sun protection shirts to keep you cool during those early season scorchers to their iconic game series hats that feel like instant classics, Duck Camp gear is ready for football season, hunting season, and every season in between. Get out there, stay out there, and hook them. Shop Duck Camp at duckcamp.com. And on Texas Football Fam, don't forget, use the promo code ONTexas25. That's ONTexas25 for 25% off your order at duckcamp.com.
Thank you so much, Jeff. All right, we can pivot to talking about this college football playoff ranking. Do we have any more of the top 5 out quite yet?
Yes, Texas Tech's at 5. Georgia's now at 4 after the win over Texas. They're releasing the top 3, which I would assume doesn't change. If it does, well, I guess teams are rewarded for going down 30-3 against South Carolina. But that's, in fact, it doesn't change. A&M at 3, Indiana 2, and Ohio State will stick at 1. So Texas right now, 2 of their 3 losses right now are to teams that are ranked number 1 and number 4 in the country. And Jeff, back to an earlier point that you made, it's very clearly being seen by the committee how they view that early season loss to Ohio State for the Longhorns. Texas right now, very clearly, the highest ranked 3-loss team in the country. Again, none of this really matters unless Texas goes out this weekend, takes care of business against Arkansas, and gets one step closer to being a 9-3 team with 3 wins over top 10 teams.
Yep.
So, okay, so I guess in this scenario, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the rankings and trying to figure out what ESPN is doing. So basically ESPN in this bracket, they would have Miami winning the ACC. I guess that's how Miami's getting in, correct? Yes. Okay. Somebody's got to want to win the ACC at some point, right?
I don't know about that.
Nobody's really trying to go win that thing, and Miami just made producer Matthew, I know, follows that conference a lot closer. I mean, I guess Miami's going to kind of backdoor their way into the ACC championship game. I think SMU is mathematically still alive. And Claudie's saying national media saying Texas is done no matter what. I think I would say probably, because realistically, I mean, I don't see Oklahoma losing to either LSU or LSU or Missouri. Yes, thank you, Amanda.
Missouri did put up 49 last week, so
yeah,
chance.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, again, you don't control your own destiny. So that's the hard part with this. And we knew that coming out of the Georgia game. Like, you were no matter the result of the Georgia game, you were gonna need a lot of help.
Yeah.
To be a 9-3 playoff team. And Oklahoma beating Alabama did not help you at all. And especially if, Vanderbilt ends up beating Tennessee to finish 10-2, that doesn't help you either. Like,
Tennessee looks very suspect, very beatable.
It's basically you need to win out, and you need more help than is probably realistically available.
Yeah. It is interesting. I don't know if I necessarily agree. I mean, Texas behind Vanderbilt, who head-to-head they have ahead, but I mean, anywhere between that 14 to 17 range kind of makes sense. I did want to get your thoughts on the A&M situation and just how they looked against South Carolina and how beatable you think they are, knowing how they looked against that first, because watching that first half against South Carolina, it gave me a lot of joy. I don't know about you, but just kind of watching every single thing that could possibly go wrong in a football game go wrong back to back to back. Every time they got close to the end zone, interception. They take a 20-some yard field goal, doink, off the goal. It was like a comedy of errors. So just watching that, if you get A&M off their footing in Austin, they're a beatable team, and I feel like they've been a beatable team this season. You could see it, the Arkansas, the numbers up there, their run defense has been suspect. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but obviously Marcel Reed led a great comeback.
Yeah, CJ, I'll be real quick here. With A&M, I don't think A&M is an unbeatable team, and actually, in a lot of ways, I think Texas matches up a lot better with A&M than they matched up with Georgia. I just think Georgia, for a lot of the things they do, especially defensively with their front, I just think they're a terrible matchup for Texas. A&M, not very good stopping the run, but can Texas establish the run? And if they can, and will they stick with it? That's the big thing there. But like, going back to that game specifically, Amanda, it was one of those deals that I don't want to ascribe it to anybody, because I don't remember who in our group chat, our OTF staff text, said it, but somebody said, hey, this is kind of like Oklahoma State, Texas back in the day. And you looked at it in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, A&M was like played in like an F- first half, just sloppier than you could ever imagine. And South Carolina was about as perfect as they could have played. And the minute A&M went out and scored to start the second half, I felt like South Carolina was cooked at that point. Like, it's just that, that there's no reason for that team to be as bad as they are with the talent they have. But that's, there's a reason why Shane Beamer, I think, is squarely on a hot seat now. But CJ, you can go ahead.
Yeah, he should have been left in College Station, which is probably the worst place to ever be fired if you're a head coach, is you're just stuck in College Station. But to lose a game like that, the way in which they did it, where a 27-point lead evaporated in a manner of about 10 minutes of game time, was just it was pathetic on the side of South Carolina. Credit to A&M for obviously making the comeback. But look, I think to your point, Amanda, about the first half, the blueprint set on how to beat A&M. Right, it's for teams that stick with the run. South Carolina can't run the football at all. That's right there next to Texas being one of the worst teams in the SEC when it comes to running the football. But what Texas does really well running the football is really their only identity is outside zone. And if you watch back that Missouri game, that's the definition of establishing the run and going away from it, and letting a kid that looks like he's never played quarterback before throw 7 of 22 and a number of interceptions, right? So the blueprint's there to beat A&M, and you saw it in that first half. It's get after the quarterback, but also be smart in the time in which you bring pressure, right? Because you can sit back there, and the more that you let Marcel Reed throw the ball vertically down the field, the better chances you have for him to make a mistake. And we saw that basically that entire first half, right? He was 6 of 19. I think those 6 completions actually went for about 130 yards or something like that. So
some of them were on the receivers just getting hit in the face and dropping the ball.
Yeah, they had the drops just like Texas did as well. But my point is, the errant passes from Marcel Reed come when they're down the field. And that's kind of a concern for Texas is, look, they've been very susceptible to the underneath crossers. I thought they did very well containing Zachariah Branch this past week, however. So you have the give and trade of, can you give up the short routes without getting beat, versus what about slants or crossers or targets to motion, where these guys already have a head start. That's where I get concerned, because we've seen that be an issue for Texas in the past. And obviously, I think Texas A&M, those two wide receivers, they make the offense. They make the quarterback. They make and mask any deficiency in the run game, which right now I think A&M's averaging north of 200 yards rushing in conference play this year. So, look, I think this is a matchup that, of the top 10 teams in the country, bodes a little bit more so towards the Longhorns here. Of course, getting that game at home is going to be important. If Texas wins this weekend, hey, they'll have something to fight for. Will it mean anything by the end of the day? Who knows? But at the very least, you have to give yourself a chance to fight for something, and that starts this weekend against Arkansas.
Man, a part of me is almost more concerned about the Arkansas game than I am with the A&M game.
Same.
Because, like, Jerry talked about it on the Sunday live stream. He actually wrote about it on TexasFootball.com today. Like, coming off that Florida loss, you're playing Oklahoma. Like, you should be. If you're not up for the OU game, then I don't know. You don't have a pulse. But you're coming back home. Like, at this point, your chance for the playoff is probably done. You're barring something really unforeseen. You don't have a hope there's no path to Atlanta. Producer Matthew just gave us in our group chat here Miami's path to the ACC championship game. I would imagine it looks like something like that for Texas to get to Atlanta. Like, it would just be mass chaos for Texas to get there, if there even is a path. You're playing an Arkansas team that, for all intents and purposes, this is their bowl game. Like, Bobby Petrino would love nothing more than to bring his team down to DKR and get a win. And man, with the way Texas secondaries play lately, CJ, I said last year there was good Taylon Green and there was bad Taylon Green. Good Taylon Green, Arkansas could match scores just about anybody in the country. Bad Taylon Green, he could take Arkansas out of games. We've seen a lot more good Taylon Green than bad Taylon Green this year.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing with Arkansas. For anybody who's watched a lick of Arkansas athletics, right, this 2025 Arkansas football team encapsulates a lot of that, and it's the Heartbreak Hogs, right? You go back to that Memphis game, they dominated that game in the second half. There was no reason for that game to be close. A couple turnovers, a fumble late in the game, and all of a sudden, well, now it's Memphis with the lead and the upset opportunity at home early in the season. That kind of set the tone, right? You go back a year ago, Arkansas had 200 more yards than Oklahoma State, and yet it didn't matter because, well, turnovers, a muffed punt, opportunities in the red area that weren't converted, left points off the board, and Arkansas just is the definition of self-inflicted wounds ending up in a loss. So for Texas, this week is going to be really important because, look, they can score. Texas,
yeah.
I have the numbers here if y'all want to go through it. Just real quick, this is opposing teams and their rushing totals against Arkansas this year. Let me know if you hear a trend here. Memphis, 290, Notre Dame, 210, Tennessee, 264, A&M, 217, Auburn, 230, Mississippi State, 106, LSU, 135. They had a backup quarterback as well. But for the 6 of the 8 teams that Arkansas's played in the Power 5 this year, including Memphis in there, more than 200 yards rushing this year. They've allowed in a single game. Texas hasn't done that against a Power 4 team or really any team at all since the Clemson College Football Playoff Game 1 last year. So if you ever figure it out, this is the weekend to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, but we could have said the same thing going into the Florida game.
I know it, Jeff. I know it.
Game, and same thing going into the Mississippi State game. And Georgia's run defense has been vulnerable at times. So, yeah.
That's the thing. It's like we've gone into weeks of preparation saying, hey, this could be the slump buster for Texas. And it was like, well, they've called the number for a slump buster so many times this year that it just doesn't matter.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to hear from our friends over at Advanced Pain Care. Then we'll get a little bit more into this Arkansas game.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. And Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
All right, first off, we got some money for your inevitable F-bomb, Jeff.
Yeah. I trying to be as transparent as possible, right? I need to be better. I need to not let that get to me. But man, at some point you can only deal with it so much. So if somebody on the OTF staff is gonna go out on that limb, I'll do it.
Yeah. Understand. You should take a peek into my DMs after some of these moving goalpost podcasts I do.
I'll save CJ and Jerry and Bobby and Rod from having to do it. So.
Okay, awesome. All right, we got a super chat from Killa1021. Did y'all see Desmond Howard make a prediction that Texas and Sark could mutually part ways in December? I think everybody on the internet saw that. Your thoughts? I know we are all angry, but who else would we get not saying we fire Sark? I mean, I wouldn't say I'm angry. I'm disappointed. Everybody's disappointed after a loss. Also, I think Desmond's talking out of his you-know-what.
That'll be the
deal. The whole deal. Sorry, CJ, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the whistle is just the bleep for the inevitable bomb, right? But no, look, Texas isn't gonna part ways with Steve Sarkisian. If there is a parting of ways, it's because Steve Sarkisian opts for the NFL. Is that likely right now? I would say probably not. In fact, I'd be very surprised if Arch Manning ever took a snap of college football where Steve Sarkisian was not his head coach. I would be very surprised if that was the case. As a matter of fact, I don't expect any change to happen after this year. In fact, if there was any change, I think it'd be Steve Sarkisian looking in the mirror and saying, hey, I want to make all the decisions with my team. Personnel-wise, coaching-wise, who's on my staff-wise. If there was any other outside influence right now, that's gone. It's back to me being the ultimate decision maker right now. And obviously, he's not happy with the way that this has gone. I know that we just talked about his answer about how this hasn't been an underachieving season. We've heard Sarkisian for years now say he's addicted to winning, that he's gotten so close to the mountaintop that he would do whatever it takes to get back to the mountaintop. To me, after a year like this, and yes, it's been disappointing, it's not to give up on Sarkisian, but it's for Sarkisian to get back in quote-unquote the lab and figure out what exactly went wrong. So, no, I don't think there's a split coming. In fact, I think Sarkisian, if anything, is going to look around and say, hey, I need to go even – God, I hate that I'm about to make an all gas, no brakes here, but he's got to put a pedal to the metal. Right. I hate that I walked into that one, but that's exactly what it is. Because I think this year he got a little complacent with the way that his roster was constructed, with the way that he thought his team was ready for this season. And evidently, as the season wore on, the answers weren't there. So I think next year you're going to see a very focused Steve Sarkisian and staff, ready for 2026.
I will say in the same video, he also said that everybody was surprised when Les Miles was fired, which I don't know if you guys were surprised, but I don't know a single person that was surprised. So sorry,
Jeff. When Les Miles was fired at LSU?
Yeah. Said y'all were all surprised when Les Miles was fired. Who was surprised?
I don't even think Les Miles was surprised when Les Miles was fired.
Maybe his son was surprised because he was spewing stuff on Twitter afterwards, but
that's okay. No, look, I mentioned that I answered a question like this over at ontexasfootball.com today, and somebody was the poster had mentioned something about being in shambles. Like, look, the Texas program right now under Sark.
Oh, I meant Brian Kelly, not Les Miles. Sorry, my brain's not working right. Sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. But still, the point still apply. Like, no one was surprised when they fired Brian Kelly. You can't get your head kicked in a night game in Baton Rouge and then be that much of an abrasive a-hole and alienate people and expect to keep your job. It's not going to happen. But with this deal, Texas isn't in shambles, right? You need to tweak some things, no question. And I just feel like you look at any coach that's had a sustained run in any blue blood, at some point you kind of got to tweak things a little bit. Mac did at Texas, and I pointed it out, like 2003 going into 04 and 05, and he did it again coming off 07 going into 8 and 09. Like, you have to tweak some things. Nothing's going to stay the same forever. How many times has Nick Saban done it? I mean, Kirby did it at Georgia when he brought in Todd Monken to modernize the offense. So it's just a matter of, can Sark take stock of these things and push the right buttons to get Texas to the next level? Because I think as things are currently constructed, I don't know if I feel like it's hit its ceiling, and you just got to tweak these things. I also think I want to get y'all's take on this. And again, I'm not making excuses, but I do wonder, when you've had back-to-back years with you made the last year, the 14 playoff, you were in the semifinals and you made that deep playoff run last year. I don't think, look, I would love for Texas to be in the playoff this year. Love for them to be in Atlanta playing for an SEC championship. But if you do it right, if you handle it right, it may not be the worst thing to, after the A&M game, all you're looking forward to is the bowl game. To really give you some time to take a deep breath, sit back, and really give you some extra time to analyze things, get your plan ready to go attack the portal. You can turn this into something positive that benefits the brand next year and beyond. So
yeah, because to your point, you're not far away. You're not. You don't need a total facelift. You need to tweak a few things, right? I think we can all agree. Hey, on the offensive line, you probably need to get some maulers. I think that's something that Texas probably hasn't had enough of over the last few years. But altogether, your quarterback's coming into form. If you look towards 2026, you've got a lot of pieces that are returning that build for quite a strong foundation. Not to mention, you're going to have some guys that are true sophomores right now getting some very valuable burn going into their junior years. Of course, should you retain them, the NIL era is crazy. You never quite know. So let me throw that caveat out there. But you're going to have very talented roster once again with a veteran quarterback at this point. So I do think you're going to have a lot of reason again for optimism. And for the folks in the chat earlier, look, hey, we'll be careful with how we portray that optimism, right, Jeff? But this is a team that's going to have talent, and this is a team that's not far away. It just needs to tweak and adjust a few things.
I think even too, because when you have a season where you fall short of expectations, and that's what this is. And actually, Kill at 1021, thank you for the super chat. But I want to get to Christopher Weatherford's question here in the chat. Says, so OTF team, do y'all see a if 9-3 record as a failure or a mild disappointment? I would never call a 9-win regular season a failure. This is me. I'm speaking for myself. I would not call it a failure. But yeah, it's a disappointment because at 9-3 at this point means you're not going to be playing for an SEC championship and you're not going to be in the playoffs, so you're eliminated from contention for a national championship. That's a disappointment. But to CJ's point, like at 9-3, especially with a win over A&M, I think it reinforces like you've got talent, you've got enough pieces. It's just that I think to get to that next level, I think Sark has to go completely under the hood and be like, all right, what all needs to be tweaked? Even, one of the suggestions I've seen some people suggest, hey, does strength conditioning need to be looked at? Probably. And I'm not saying fire Torrey Becton by any stretch, but it may be a deal where Torrey Becton and that staff need to be like, you know what? We've been doing it this way for a couple years now. Maybe we need to just attack different areas or emphasize different things or whatever the case is. Anytime you have a season where you don't meet expectations and at this rate they're not going to, you got to reevaluate everything.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't see a 9-3 record as a failure, but maybe that's just me being used to going through college with 5-7 records.
Yeah,
I consider this a lot more joy than what I was used to. That being said, there's been a precedent set with the last 2 seasons. I've said this many, many times that Texas fans have gotten used to getting better and better and better and better under Steve Sarkisian. And this has been a step back from what you've gotten accustomed to over the last 2 seasons. So yeah, that's going to be disappointing. I think the real assessment of, is this an actual issue, will come next. Does this continue over to next season? Is there growth from this season to next season? And then we can be a little bit more harsh.
I see a couple posters, a couple people in the chat mention it. Cordy Share says, make the playoffs should be the expectation, yes, and the 12-plus team CP era, then let the chips fall with it. I mean, CJ, in the words of the great Mike Reiner, whatever it takes to just make the tournament. Just got to get into the tournament. That's why it's kind of now with the playoff, to me, it's kind of like when Texas was going into the last year in the Big 12 and people would ask me, what do you think the record's going to be? What's the record going to be? The record needs to be whatever it takes to get to Arlington. If 10-2 does it, if 11-1 does it, if 9-3, whatever it takes for you to be at Arlington playing for the Big 12 championship, that's what it needs to be. So going forward, I mean, if 9-3, if there's a year where 9-3 gets you in, then 9-3 is great. It's not a failure. But there may be a year where you go 10-2 and you don't get in. So I'm not for attaching arbitrary win totals to success or failure. It's just a matter of, did you get into the tournament or not?
That's it. That's exactly it. Because once you're in, hey, who knows what might happen? But you can't have fun at the dance if you're left outside. And that right now is where Texas is sitting at number 17. Look, it's tough for football to go on runs when, you're a team that's lower seeded, but at Texas, with the way that they recruit, that's all you need, a foot in the door, and you never know. So that should be the standard, especially with the resources, with the level of talent, with the way that Texas is recruiting. This should be a game in which this should be a bar in which Texas should achieve each and every year. But things happen in the game of football. So we'll see. But right now, I do think that is something that is attainable for Texas moving forward.
Yep, definitely. All right, we'll check in on the Texas basketball score after we hear from our friend Mark Saunders. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? Here's some good news. Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders, serving the Austin and Round Rock area and all of Texas, is the only insurance agent you need. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. Call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today at 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands? With more than 35 years of experience, you will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders. If you're looking for someone local to the Austin Round Rock area and all of Texas, give him a call at 512-218-8571. I almost said 300 years of experience, so that tells you how well my brain is working. My fire alarm went off at 3:30 a.m. last night and was on for 45 minutes, so that is why I called Brian Kelly Les Miles. So I am so sorry about that.
That's all right. And as good as he is, Mark Saunders might as well have 300 years of experience because he's that good at what he does.
Yep, there you go. Extra plug for him. All right, we want to pull up that basketball score.
Yeah, we got 21-11. We're coming up on the under 12 timeout.
Awesome. All right, we'll get to some more of your super chats real quick. We got one here from Lane C. Right. Simmons and Hill were in coverage a lot early. Do you think PK was trying to mask some of the secondary issues that are now being exposed?
Not with those guys in coverage. Those aren't the guys that you want to have in coverage. We've seen it a few times with Colin Simmons, probably about 4 to 7 times per game, depending on how many times or how many snaps the defense plays. They'll use Simmons in coverage pretty often. I thought we saw a little bit more of Hill off the edge at times. Obviously, playing the middle of the field is something that it has become a bit of a strength for Anthony Hill. The interception would go to show that on Saturday, but you just kind of have to pick and choose when you want to blitz and use both of them off the edge, because then you're looking at your best pass rushing unit on the field at the same time, which leaves you perhaps a little vulnerable over the middle of the field. I don't think you're masking anything with the secondary issues with that pass rush. If you are, Jeff, look, you probably need to bring another, just to get home and be sure that ball's getting out quick. Yeah. But no, I didn't think there was anything out of the ordinary there.
I like 95% of what PK has done since he's been at Texas, especially with the evolution of the defense we've seen. They've kept Texas in, we're going on 2 years, 3 years now, where you've kept the defense has kept you in pretty much every game. I don't like as much as he drops Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill into coverage, though. I don't. Those two guys are much better when they're attacking the line of scrimmage. So. I'm with CJ Lane. I think your deficiencies in the secondary are what they are. I think the best way to help a team that struggles in coverage is to dial up your pass rush.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get to this one real quick from Cisco. Speaking of Hill, do we have any update on his status? And he has a hand. He's good with just one. I mean, I got one too if he wants one of mine as well.
Very gracious of you, Cisco. No update yet. Of course, Texas still monitoring Anthony Hill's, status. We'll, of course, hear from the SEC availability report tomorrow. I would expect him to be listed as questionable. But with those hand injuries, we've obviously seen it across the SEC. And Michael Taft most recently, you just don't quite know, especially at positions where you need your hand quite a bit. So we'll see. Sark did say yesterday that he was optimistic, but not ready to make a declaration on whether or not he is going to be available or unavailable for Saturday.
Awesome. All right, we'll hear from our sponsor, Culligan's, real quick and get to some more of your questions. You know, when it comes to the water your family drinks and uses every day, you don't want to cut corners. That's why for over 90 years, people have trusted Culligan. And here in Austin, Culligan Ultra Pure has been serving the community for more than 60 years. Culligan Ultra Pure provides high-quality residential water treatment at an affordable price, including reverse osmosis systems, water softeners, and UV purification lights. Whether your water comes from a well or municipal source, Culligan has a perfect treatment solution for your home. And right now, you can schedule a free water test and save up to $600 when you mention On Texas Football. Culligan Ultra Pure proudly serves Austin, Corpus Christi, Victoria, Brownwood, Pampa, and Plainview. So don't wait. Call Culligan Ultra Pure today at 512-339-2378 to schedule your free water analysis. That's 512-339-2378. And make sure to ask for Michael. Better water starts with Culligan. Got a question from Colton. I had the same thought as Stevie last night. This could have been a rebuilding year. Did y'all think that before the season it was possible?
No. Again, this kind of goes back to what we talked about. Texas was the number one team in the country by the AP poll. We had sat in here and talked about all of the talent on this roster. There were high hopes. 12 teams make the playoff based off of the standard that this program had set before itself over the last 2 seasons. That standard is to make the college football playoff. There shouldn't be a rebuilding year at the University of Texas. You reload, right? That's what a Georgia does. That's what an Alabama does. That's what Ohio State does. That's why they are continuously in contention for the college football playoff and national championship. Is that if that's not the goal at the University of Texas, someone needs to tell me what is, because that should be the case. Every single year that Texas in football is fighting for a national championship. Rebuilding to me tells me that you are not, and that you are preparing for the future because you don't have it this year. Again, that shouldn't be the case here. And with the way that they're recruiting and the resources that are available, they should be in contention every single year.
You don't go into a year with a guy that everybody and their brother has deemed a generational talent at quarterback and call it a rebuilding year. You don't, period. I mean, right or wrong, you don't. And, with the way things have unfolded, outcomes aside, you can rationalize a schedule where you've got a road loss to Ohio State and a road loss to Georgia. But it's really tough to stomach a road loss to a bad Florida team or having to go to overtime to beat Kentucky and Mississippi State. That hasn't helped the perception of how this program has performed this year.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree. This is one thing also on moving goalposts. Billy was trying to convince me of that this could be a completely different year, a step back for Texas, a rebuilding year. And I said otherwise. I said that the expectation should be you reload. I think Steve Sarkisian knew coming into the SEC that is the expectation. He coached under Nick Saban for however many years. He watched the reload happen. What it could be is a missed assessment of what you're reloading with.
Yeah.
You thought you were reloading with one thing, and turns out what you reloaded with was not up to the level of what you need to compete at the level you're at. And I think we've seen that pan out a bit. And a lot of people want to pin it on Arch at first. I don't think Arch is a reason you lost at Florida. I don't think Arch is a reason you lost at Georgia. I think there's just a lack of consistency. There's just breakdowns in certain areas that there shouldn't be. It should be a reloading year. So yeah, I don't think nobody expected it to be a rebuilding year, but I think at this point you kind of have to reassess what it is. You're going to need to rebuild something. That O-line's going to need to look a little different coming into next season. So
I agree. I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and hear from our last sponsor real quick. Then we'll get to a couple more of your questions. Stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you make or your schedule in general, call Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. He will take you through a process to identify a business that will fit not only your financial goals, but also your skill set. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your destiny, call Andy or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. We got a recruiting question, which I thought was interesting. CJ and Amanda, are some 2027 recruits waiting to see how Texas ends the season to make a decision? I think it comes down to more than that at this point. I'm sure some of them are, But at the same time, I think in the NIL era, recruiting it's a little bit more complex than that.
CJ, we talked about it. You, Jerry, and I talked about it on the recruiting breakdown today. Like, I think this is it's less about Texas and more of Oklahoma and A&M and Texas Tech and some other schools being really, really aggressive right now.
Yeah, they are. And look, they should be, right? They're capitalizing on seasons that they've yet to experience in the modern college football playoff era, right? That's when you strike when the iron's hot. And we've known with Texas over the last few years, they like to wait until the calendar year flips and they get these kids on campus for a junior day where they get final measurements. They kind of get to see them in action or in person once again. That's really when they start to then begin the process of building their class. And, we'll see if that holds firm again this year, right? Normally you have a quarterback in the class by now. Texas does not. Maybe you have in recent years, you have a Amari Winston or a Chris Stewart, a guy that commits early in the class and the staff really likes him. You don't have that yet. Not to say it couldn't happen between now and December 31st, but you have seen teams start to move their calendars up a little bit when it comes to building the next cycle's class. And I think that's something that Texas might need to be a little bit more aggressive with. But you have a lot of time between now, the end of the year, junior day, and of course, when all of these kids start to take official visits all together, I think Texas is in a fine position. But we'll see how aggressive they get over the next month or two.
I do think another interesting thing when it comes to just recruiting and in general is the transfer portal, especially this year with the coaching changes and just how complex that can make the transfer portal this year and leading that back into the rebuilding need at this point for Texas, because this isn't a product you want to put out on the field 2 years in a row and expect to not be on a hot seat.
And I don't know how Sark and the staff are going to play that because you only have the one window.
Yep.
You only have the January window, so that's going to be a lot of stuff you probably wish you could go get, but you've really got to pare down your needs.
Well, you're not distracted with the college football playoff, at least.
Perhaps not. My thing there, Jeff, is if that's your case, you don't quite have the opportunity for another spring portal window. You got to hit on your guys. You can't waste on opportunities to bring guys in which you spend a lot of your funding for guys that aren't going to be instant impact guys. And I think at times you look around this year and you see a lot of money sitting on the sidelines for Texas. And that's something that I don't think you can go back into another season with, considering, hey, you don't have the luxury of going through a spring football and then again assessing your needs of what you need to go out and bolster your roster with.
And if like Texas loves to take defensive tackles from the portal, right? So let's just use that position for this example. If you can't get a defensive tackle and you wanted one, now if you're Sark, the message has to be to PK and Kenny Baker. All right, you guys need to make sure Josiah Sharma and Myron Charles are ready.
They got
all the young guys in this program. Like you gotta accelerate the curve because they got to be able to help us.
Definitely. All right, thanks, guys. That's just about our time. Thank you guys so much for joining us for Tuesday night's Longhorn live stream for On Texas Football. Y'all make sure to tune in to Coffee and Football tomorrow morning. And for On Texas Football, I'm Amanda Atwell. That's Jeff Howell. That's CJ Vogel. Y'all have a great rest of your night and hook 'em horns.
Thank you, Matthew.